This video is an introduction to thematic catalogs in music. A thematic catalog is, strictly speaking, any index of musical compositions that uses musical incipits to identify pieces. A musical incipit is a short snippet of music notation that shows the beginning of a piece. Thematic catalogs may be issued for a variety of reasons, including by publishers to promote sales of music scores, or even printed as a table of contents in the beginning of a score collection. The kind of thematic catalogs we're talking about here are scholarly thematic catalogs. These are bibliographic indexes of the works of a composer or a group of composers prepared by musicological experts with a close attention to accuracy. We know them by the catalog numbers they assign to pieces, which become a standard way to refer accurately to compositions. K numbers for Mozart come from Köchel's catalog of Mozart's works. D numbers for Schubert's compositions come from Deutsch's catalog of Schubert, and Hoboken numbers for Haydn's works come from Anthony van Hoboken's catalog of that composer. These scholarly thematic catalogs are one of the most challenging types of music research tools to use for a variety of reasons. This video will discuss thematic catalogs in general, and then we'll take a close look at one of the best-known thematic catalogs, Wolfgang Schmieder's catalog of the works of Bach. By understanding how that catalog is put together, we should be able to approach most other thematic catalogs with at least some sense of familiarity. Students and scholars use thematic catalogs for a number of different purposes. These include exact identification of a work, establishing the authenticity of a work, having a guide to a composer's output, including what they've written in a particular genre, gaining information about a piece, including source information, instrumentation, date of composition and first performance, and so on, documenting the existence of pieces that are now lost, and finding citations to published scholarship on a piece. Another type of index, the catalog raisonné, is used in the same way. The only difference between a thematic catalog and a catalog raisonné is that the former identifies pieces by means of musical incipits, while the latter uses some other means to identify pieces. Thematic catalogs can be organized in different ways. One approach is to group pieces together by genre or classification, so that symphonies are grouped together in one section, theatrical works are grouped together in another section, and so on. The Schmieder catalog of Bach's works follows this method. Another approach is to organize the catalog chronologically in the order that pieces were composed. The Köchel catalog of Mozart's works uses this approach. Some catalogs organize their contents by opus number, irrespective of chronology or classification. Kinski and Halm's catalog of Beethoven's works uses this method. Thematic catalogs can also come in different formats. We mostly think of a thematic catalog as a standalone book, and a pretty hefty one at that. Schmieder comes in at more than 1,000 pages. However, thematic catalogs can also be published as articles in journals. An example is Brian Priestman's catalog of the works of the Loyer family of composers, shown here as it was published in 1952 in the Belgian Review of Musicology. Another place we sometimes see a thematic catalog is as part of a dissertation, like this thematic catalog of the works of Mauro Giuliani in the 1970 doctoral dissertation of Thomas Heck, still the only thematic catalog available for Giuliani. Thematic catalogs can also be published online, like this catalog of the works of Carl Nielsen, created and maintained by the Royal Danish Library. In this video, we will be looking at a well-known book-length thematic catalog, but keep in mind they can come in different forms. Thematic catalogs generally have as their central section a detailed bibliographic list of a composer's works. Indeed, this section is the thematic catalog proper. However, they often come with extra features such as chronological or classified indexes of work, biographical notes or chronologies, indexes of song titles and first lines, thematic locator tables, and guides to vocabulary and abbreviations. In fact, because so many abbreviations are used in order to save space in a printed catalog, special attention to tables of abbreviations is warranted. Each entry in the main section of a thematic catalog can contain different information, but common elements include the catalog number, the title, incipits, authors of texts, date and place of composition and of first performance, dedication, locations in collected works editions, locations of manuscript sources, locations of early printed editions, and citations to literature about the piece. In addition to the intricate structure and organization, one of the most challenging things about using thematic catalogs is dealing with a foreign language, most often German. The creation of thematic catalogs is particularly linked to the German tradition of music scholarship. Alexander Hyatt King, one of the foremost scholars of thematic catalogs, has written that thematic catalogs were German in their origins and continuously German in their development. British and American scholars have been catching up in recent years, but you are still likely to find yourself outside of your zone of language comfort when engaging thematic catalogs. A few resources can be very useful. Jane Gottlieb's book, Music Library and Research Skills, contains a select German-English glossary of terms likely to be found in these catalogs. Google Translate can also be an invaluable tool. We will use it throughout our exploration of Schmieder's catalog of Bach's works. In the Library of Congress classification, standalone thematic catalogs are usually found in the ML134 call number area, though this section also includes other types of bibliographic works, including the research handbooks we explored in another video. Thematic catalogs is a recognized Library of Congress subject heading, so you can also try looking for them by searching the library catalog on this term plus a composer's name, as for example, Mozart thematic catalogs. Another way to find thematic catalogs is by looking in Brook and Viano, thematic catalogs in music and annotated bibliography. After identifying a title in Brook and Viano, you can try to find it in the library catalog, in Prospector, or in WorldCat. Another way to find references to thematic catalog is to look at the beginning of a works list in a biographical article on a composer in the New Grove. The thematic catalog we will examine in detail is Wolfgang Schmieder's catalog of the work of Johann Sebastian Bach, known colloquially as the Bach-Werke-Verzeichnis, or BWV. This is where Bach's works get their BWV numbers from. First, a little background. The BWV was not the first catalog of Bach's works. The first non-thematic index was created by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach and Johann Friedrich Agricola in 1754. The second was included in the 1790 inventory of CPE Bach's estate after his death. The first thematic catalog was created in 1832 by Franz Hauser, and this document formed part of the inspiration for the creation of the Bach-Gesellschaft Ausgabe, the monumental first critical edition of the composer's works that was completed in 1899. Other thematic and non-thematic catalogs were created over the years, including two that were included in the BGA itself. The Bach-Werke-Verzeichnis was first conceived as an updated index to the BGA in 1926. Progress was slow at first, and the project was passed from editor to editor over the year, Wolfgang Schmieder being the third editor to work on it. Printing of the catalog was finally underway in 1943, when an Allied bombing raid on the city of Leipzig in the month of December destroyed all the printed sheets, all the typeset plates, many of the engraved plates, and the editor's finished typed manuscript. Another copy of the manuscript had been similarly destroyed in Frankfurt the previous October. It seemed impossible to reconstruct all the research that had gone into the project, but after the war, Schmieder discovered an old set of printer's proofs from 1938 that had survived the war intact. Working from these, he managed to create a new manuscript, and the project was finally published in 1950. Coincidentally, this was the same year the new critical edition of Bach's works, the Neue Bach Ausgabe, was begun. The version of Schmieder's catalog we will examine is the second edition, published in 1990. The first edition of the BWV organizes Bach's works by classification according to genre, as can be seen in the table of contents. This organization is retained in the second edition. One fortunate difference in the second edition is that it contains English translations of some important sections. These are the preface to the first edition, the second preface to the second edition, and the remarks section, all of which contain important information on the book's organization and editorial processes. The second edition is also expanded with citations to manuscript copies other than the autograph, and lists some revised dates and updated attributions based on more recent scholarship, and unlike the first edition, it includes listings for reconstructions of pieces Bach is known to have written, but that are now lost. The structure of a typical entry in the BWV includes the catalog number. Here we're looking at BWV 140, the Cantata Wach Rauf. The title of the piece, information on the text if it is a vocal piece. Here we see only a speculation. The setting or performing medium of the piece, how to find it in the Bach-Gesellschaft-Ausgabe, and in most cases how to find it in the Neue Bach-Ausgabe as well, although in some cases the relevant NBA volume was not complete before the catalog was published, and so it does not index the piece in the Neue Bach-Ausgabe. Next, the date and place of composition. Here, EZ stands for Erste Hochzeit, which means, more or less, date of creation. Next, a section showing musical incipits of each movement. There is information on manuscript sources, with sections labeled according to the following system. The number 1 refers to the autograph. By autograph, we mean a manuscript in the composer's own hand. The number 2 refers to copies made in the first half of the 18th century. The number 3 refers to copies made in the second half of the 18th century. The number 4 refers to copies made in the first half of the 19th century. And the number 5 refers to copies the editor was not able to consult in person. The number 6 can also appear. It refers to copies known to have existed that are now lost. This entry for the Art of Fugue, BWV 1080, tells us that the autograph bears the shelf mark P200, which, along with the BWV number and the name of the composer, is enough for us to find the manuscript in rhythm. Next is a section on printed editions, called Drucke in German. Sometimes this is broken down into subsections. Original Druck means original print, or first edition. Frühdruck bis 1850 means early prints up to 1850. Frühdrucke einzelner Nummern means early prints of individual numbers. And Drucke und Ausgaben besonderer Art means roughly special editions. These sections not only describe various editions in detail, but tell us where rare surviving copies can be found. Here we can identify 3 locations in the United States with copies of the first edition of the Art of Fugue. The last section of the entry is labeled Literatur and refers to scholarly literature specifically about that piece. Many of the citations here are German sources, and the use of abbreviations is particularly dense, but there are English citations we can follow. For example, this citation to an article by Gregory Butler leads us to this article in the Musical Quarterly. 2 important features in the Schmieder catalog help us locate compositions. This thematic index to the instrumental work serves as a faster way to identify a piece by its theme than by paging through the entire book composition by composition. Here, for instance, we see the beginning of each of the 6 Brandenburg concertos. The alphabetical list of text incipits allows us to quickly find a piece based on its text. For example, if we have the text of the recitative that is the second movement of Cantata 140, this index will allow us to look it up and will refer us to the correct composition. Establishing and documenting authenticity of compositions is a major function of thematic catalogs. Schmieder deals with questions of authenticity in an appendix. The appendix, Anhang in German, is divided into 3 parts. Part A lists fragments and lost works. Part B, the second part, lists works of dubious authenticity. And the third part lists works that have been falsely attributed to Bach. Because the BWV is arranged by classification, Schmieder also includes a separate chronological table of compositions, which helps us to understand them in sequence. There are 2 more special sections that are especially appropriate to a catalog of Bach's works. Because Bach made such a practice of systematically composing in a series of related pieces, the book also includes a section listing manuscript and printed collections in existence in 1750, including such diverse items as the Anna Magdalena Notebook, the Brandenburg Concertos, and the Well-Tempered Clavier. And because Bach's church cantata cycles loom so large within his overall compositional output, there is a table mapping individual cantatas to the liturgical year. Finally, there is a name and subject index to the whole volume, allowing us to look up pieces by title if we already have that information, or to reference names of Bach's contemporaries, or of later individuals significant to the study of Bach. Our inspection of Schmieder's Bach-Werke-Verzeichnis has introduced us to most of the challenges and rewards of using thematic catalogs. We can find a piece based on its musical material, its text, or its title. We can see where to find it in the standard collected editions. We can see where and when it was composed, for what forces, and what other pieces were composed around the same time. We can identify surviving manuscripts and early editions of the piece, and locate copies of these if we need to inspect them. Finally, we can find citations to the literature on the piece to help us understand more about it. Some catalogs have features not found in Schmieder, and some may offer different information about each piece. Some will show different principles of organization. Schmieder is a well-organized catalog that stands among the best in its class, and being able to navigate it should help us navigate others of its kind.